pathways of choice, engagement and interest, so that they have some awareness of some of the things that they want to pursue. And so, for example, I was in two of the high schools this morning doing workforce development with our freshmen and sophomore, and we really talked the heart about passions and interests and what are the types of things they like to do. And so, yes, we can decide today what they would like to do from a post-secondary planning perspective. However, more importantly, what can we decide today that is a passion and interest they want to pursue? Because getting that plane ready for takeoff requires things like volunteering, internships, job shadowing, and all the things that we're getting them ready to do as they start to select their post-secondary plan moving forward. So there's a lot of parts to getting ready and lifting and getting that plane ready for flight, and that's really are huge areas of focus as well.
That's great. Donnie, I see you shaking your head.
I couldn't agree more with both Liz and Carol, not just that it's how the barriers intersect and how the services intersect, but to Liz's point, um, one small example like transportation, like financial limitations can have a ripple effect that might not be as seen. But for example, public transportation being unreliable or not having the finances for a lift or rideshare can cause a student to miss classes. And that turns into, like I said, a ripple effect that can create multiple barriers. So aligning all these, intersecting these, I believe is the focus of our work moving forward.
Yeah. And Donnie, I know I made reference to this new initiative here at FCA that you oversee, which we call
Yes.
RISE. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about that because it goes right to, I think, some of the things you're talking about.
Sure, my pleasure. RISE, the acronym stands for Ready for Independence, Success, and Employment, which, if you think about it, all goals, all areas of a young person's life fall under one of those categories. Even further education would fall under success, if you think about it. RISE is designed to support and assist young adults in achieving whatever goals they might have, personal, professional, educational. Our idea is to help them break down these goals into tangible and achievable steps, and then work together with them and handhold them as they achieve these goals.
That's great. So Daisy, I'm thinking of this area that you oversee, which includes, of course, this vocational support, but also the educational piece to get there through the Aspire program. What have you seen? And this is going to be a question I'm actually going to ask all of you. What have you seen has shifted, or have you seen a shift in the last, say, 3 to 5 years in terms of challenges, but maybe also opportunities for young people?
Yeah, so I think the shift that I've noticed is just the overwhelming of responsibility that our young adults are feeling once they shift into adulthood, right? A lot of the questions they get, what now? What are you doing today? What goals do you have? So there's a lot of those questions that they're being asked that it can feel overwhelming. And I think that working together, even people in this panelist, we work together all the time, right? We lean on each other in order to provide the services and support that our young adults are in need. And I think it's just the knowing that there are some directions that they feel like they need to take on as they become young adults, and receiving the right support. I think it's what's been helping in our work today as we work together in collaboration.
Mhm. Liz, from Fairfield County Community Foundation's perspective, what are you seeing as shifts in this region? And one might even say we're greater Norwalk area down to the lower part of the county, almost a region within a region. But
Mhm.
what are you seeing in terms of shifts?
Well, I think there's multiple. One, I think globally as a generation, this new generation coming in of young adults is truly going to change the world. The access to innovation, the creativity and the drive of this generation is just going to be amazing. And I can't wait to see what this next generation does. And I think it's also important to highlight some of the skills that are going to be really resilient skills to build with young people moving forward. And I really think there's a couple of buckets just from what we've learned, but I'm sure many others on this call and, participants on this call have learned is that I think soft skills and critical thinking skills are going to be some of the most resilient skills moving forward. And I think where this generation is really looking for guidance and support from the rest of us, I think many of us have taken for granted the time that we have spent in person in offices organically learning some of those skills over the course of our lifetimes. And I think what's unique to this generation is that they've spent a lot of their pivotal growth years where they could develop those relationships and develop those skills online on screens. And I think what we've discovered as a society is there's a whole lot of things we can do online and on screens. And there's a whole lot of capabilities and that AI is going to bring to us. But one of the things that we need for all of those things to work well is the baseline of soft skills and critical thinking skills. And I think that really needs to be integrated into the workforce development work that we continue to do holistically. I think also, this they're facing seemingly insurmountable barriers currently in our systems that all of the collective experts on this call are going to have to work to address so that we can have a strong economic future here in Fairfield County. Yeah.
You make such an important point around the soft skills and how do those soft skills get developed, particularly in the kind of environment we are in, and how much has people have been, and young people have rely on technology and Zoom meetings like this. Uh, Carol, in your position, how are you seeing that? Is that a real issue for young people that maybe in past generations there was more opportunity to develop those soft skills, and maybe they still need to be developed at this point?
That's a great question. What we're really seeing is that the soft skill development is really happening in the classrooms. Also, too, it's important to note we have started the work of Portrait of a Graduate at Norwalk Public Schools. And in that Portrait of a Graduate work, we started with critical thinker. We've moved into effective communicator, and we are now next year moving into self-directed learner. And so we are embedding the soft skills inside and outside of our classrooms. And this is our K to 12 initiative. So we're not just talking about juniors and seniors. We are talking about a spectrum of all of our students, and every student developing these soft skills through a portrait of a graduate. And then further, we're developing these skills by introducing and giving our students volunteer opportunities where they're wanting to participate and volunteer. Also, as I mentioned before, internships as well. So there are these real living, breathing opportunities for them to take the soft skills they're learning within the classroom, within our Portrait of a Graduate, and then put it to use as well. And so we're really looking at it as a holistic approach to try to embed in all areas to help support their visions and their post-secondary plans.
Yeah, great. Daisy, I'm thinking about some meetings that we've had recently with funders, and one of them in particular was asking how many of our students participate in the after-school program remotely. And your quick answer was none. So I wonder if you might speak a bit, because obviously this whole development of soft skills plays right into a program like Aspire.
Yes, absolutely. No, we're very lucky that we have moved into all in-person programming. And that transition was a big deal. A lot of times when I remember we were starting to move into in-person slowly but surely. I remember we were in a room full of students, just quiet quietness was there, right? They had a really hard time just even saying hello to their peers, right? And it took some time for them to start to feel comfortable again, to build on that confidence again, the social skills. So we quickly had to provide different programming to start doing team building activities, right? Getting back into socializing, getting back into building those confidence that it's okay to be able to come back and create some type of normalcy after years of remote learning. So at Aspire, we are very lucky. We're back on track, being in person. Our kids are enjoying our enrichment activities. We had team buildings. So we really feel that that transition has shifted into back to some more normalcy.
One of the things that occurs to me, and this is such a wonderful, distinguished panel, but obviously, as we relate to the young people who are looking for the kind of support, some of them have maybe had inconsistent contacts, relationships with helping people. And I'm wondering whether that plays, I'll ask you first, Daisy, whether that plays into the work with these young people in terms of developing a level of trust that, the process that you're trying to put in place really makes sense. So maybe you can comment on that for a minute.
Yes, I mean, again, going back into a world where it was hard for a lot of our students and young adults to kind of come back to what was expected of them, right? And building on that trust and creating an environment that feels safe again took some time. And we had to be creative, and the way we showed up each and every single time really made an impact. And how do we create a trust with our students? And I think that we at a place where I see our young adults and our students just show up. We have a wonderful space here at Ben Franklin for our after school program, and our students know where to find us, and they come in and they ask for support and guidance from us. So I think that we have shifted into a very wonderful place now, given the trust that we stay connected with them this entire time, right? This continuation of our programming. Aspire is a 7-year program, so we have this strong relationship with our students and their families.
Yeah, terrific. Donnie, how about you? You're right there with these young people who are now hitting this critical period of time. How do you develop the level of trust needed?
Yeah, I'd like to connect back to an earlier topic and then speak to this now because in addition to the soft skills, maybe deficit or areas that we need to focus on, what I'm seeing on the ground level is struggles to execute, executive functioning, but really difficulties of our young adults in executing any task, no matter what they might be, whether it's a job application, whether it's an essay, whether it's, completing homework. So to connect back to the trust question, really, our RISE model isn't necessarily designed to build trust from the get-go. We're not going to expect or hope that, but with consistency, with doing what we say we will, with supporting their, action-based tasks, accomplishing goals, never judging, and modeling accountability and transparency, that's how eventually we hope to build trust regardless, and break it down into action steps, do what we say we will, have that non-judgmental approach, and we believe that the trust will come.
That's great. An issue, and Carol, I'm going to pose this to you first. An issue that I think is out there is, it wasn't that long ago. I don't know how many years ago, at least 10 years ago, where the assumption was you went to school, you graduated from high school, and your options were you either go to college, or in a somewhat pejoratory way, you'd work in a fast food restaurant. That seemed to be maybe 10 years ago, the perception out there. Obviously, things have changed, and I wonder if you could comment because you're right there within the school system and preparing these young people to move on. What do you see now as the different true options that are out there?
That's a really great question. I don't want to date myself, but back when I was in high school at Norwalk Public Schools, a long time ago, it was college for all, and that was like the banner hanging in one of the high schools, right? Really, we are looking to ensure our students are future ready, and really, the exciting part about future ready is the student's voice is what is used to decide what makes them future ready. So, in other words, are they choosing, as you spoke to, the 4 year, the 2 year college experience? Are they looking for a military career? Are they looking for a gap year? Perhaps they're looking to go into the workforce. Maybe they're looking for a trade or a technical school. And so we do a very heavy post-secondary planning with our high school students. It includes data-informed practices. It includes best practices. It includes scholar voice because that's really what drives the data and the work. We actually work with our junior and senior class, and we are continuously asking their feedback as to what they want to go into so that we can support their post-secondary plans. And we've always said that their post-secondary plans are really their own dreams that are realized. And so in Norwalk Public Schools, we are really about what is the plan? What would you like to do? And how do we help you realize that particular plan? And so we don't drive the plan. Our plans are student driven. And it's really been an exciting time to see the expansion that we've had in our students going into workforce, trajectory careers, and also going into trades and apprenticeships and technical schools as well. So we really have a great menu for them to choose from, and it's really led by their voice.
That's great. And Liz, I think you spoke about internships as well a little while ago. So from your perspective with the County Foundation, how important are they right now? And how much should this community really be looking to encourage that?
Well, I think I also will kind of take a step back and just talk a little bit about how much the county has grown just in the last number of years in this area. So I think for a while, and now there's some great data sharing agreements with the state and the way that data is shared, you would be able to easily track young adults as they transition maybe from high school to college, as Carol outlined. But then there was this select group of students that you would graduate with little to no plan because that just wasn't the makeup of how post-secondary plans were created. And so they would graduate with little to no plan and get lost. And there's been several reports at the statewide talking about capturing young adults that might benefit from a different career path. And I want to take it also just really outline. I think there was also a very old school approach to tracking students. And it was always viewed that if you were on the college track, that was somehow better. And I think we still have a lot of work to do, quite frankly, as a country, as well as a state and a county, to think about how you just have to, as Carol outlined, this future ready approach. But what I think, when I started some of my career in this work, there really was that kind of notion, even in education versus workforce development. They were viewed as separate types of tracks in terms of how you could be professionally. And so I started off in college access and success. And that was sort of, there was like this line between that and someone who might be working in the workforce development field. And I think the power is if we continue to integrate those two things in the concept of future ready planning, career pathways planning, all of the different jargon out there for what we're really talking about, which is just ensuring that there are multiple pathways to sustainability and success for young adults and people. And so I think there's still a little bit of work to be done to get back to a place, even as a country, where there's an appropriate level of resources dedicated even to the sort of more of the workforce development side, because so many resources for so long were dedicated to helping young people be successful, getting into college and staying in college and getting a degree and all the systems that wrapped around that. And just think of how well that would work if those systems operated similarly in the workforce development ecosystem. There's a strong workforce development ecosystem in the state and in the county, the challenge is bridging all of the different groups that are in that ecosystem to collaborate even more intentionally. So that was a very long-winded way to get to your question, Rob, about internships. I think it's really important to have employers deeply involved as well. And I don't just mean from the perspective of, sure, we'll give someone an internship, or sure, we'll have a group job shadowing program. It's really this is your talent pool. And how great would it be if you were partnering with different systems that work with young adults so that that talent pool is ready for you when you're ready to hire or ready, and not only ready just to have a job at your company or in your sector, but they know how to move along a pathway, and they're developed along that pathway so that you have retention and staff members that not just start off in a particular position, but they're going to stay with you for quite some time, and maybe different roles and different positions, because you've integrated the planning along with public school partners, along with educational providers, so that everything makes sense in terms of what people are learning and how they're being prepared, and how employers are feeling involved in the process.
Yeah, yeah. Very, very good point. And you mentioned, Liz, the importance of the business community, and I'll actually look for all of you to comment on this, because I'll start with you, Carol. A lot of conversation about bringing the business community in a more active way into this whole workforce development piece. It occurs to me, or maybe this is a little bit of an editorial comment, that maybe there's still work to be done with the business community. And I see you shaking your head, Carol.
It's been a wonderful experience we've created an internship program across our 4 high schools district-wide over the last 4 years, and we've been expanding on it. And it's been a really exciting programming build and support for our students, because it's enabled us to work with our industry partners. And to Liz's point, it is, yes, there is that organic work of what are the needs of the partner to have an intern, but yes, it is the pipeline. And one of the successful things we've seen come out of the internship is where the particular internship program runs on a rolling basis from September to June. I've had some intern partners have said to me, we'd like to hire an intern or two, or however, throughout the summer. Is that okay? It's wonderful. It's so okay, because we've made a great match. It's a great situation, and that student is getting that on the ground job training in that particular sector, and it's so exciting. And part of the excitement of the program is because this particular program is open to our students who are 16 and older and in grades 10, 11, 12. Let's say that they're an 11th grader and they're in this particular internship. Well, after the summer, they're able to apply for the internship program again that opens up about August, September. And if possible, they are placed back with that particular employer if it's a great fit. And so there's really been a great conversation with the industry partners in terms of what their needs are. And it's really proving to be a win-win for our students and for them as well. But really, with that mentality of, my colleague Liz mentioned, that pipeline mentality is absolutely key, because I've had students come out of some of our internships when they're working in a preschool classroom and had now gone on, for example, to CT State Norwalk to pursue early childhood education because of that exposure, and they hadn't had that exposure prior. And so in all of those ways, that pipelining is critical.
Yeah. Daisy, I'm thinking of that component of Aspire over the last few years with Norwalk Hospital. I wonder if you could comment a little bit on that, because I think that also plays to this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with my colleagues. It's all about the opportunity, the pipeline, and our students at Aspire have the opportunity to have an internship with Norwalk Hospital, and where they were exposed to clinical and non-clinical roles, right? So they can see that the Norwalk Hospital it's more than just becoming a doctor or nurses, right? There's so many roles available that they may not ever have thought about, and being able to attend an 8 to 10 weeks paid internship, right? It really provides that opportunity. I tell my students all the time, look, show up with the best version of yourself. This is your chance to network. Make an impression, because these are the people that one day can hire you. You're meeting different hire managers, and you're having the opportunity to see, is this a field that I may be interested in? And we have a wonderful relationship with Newark Hospital. We've been working together over 2 years now, and it's been wonderful. I have students who are may not all be interested in the clinical piece, right? I had a student who loved cooking, and he asked me, "Can I be a chef at the hospital?" And I said, "Absolutely." And we were able to make those connections to see if this is a place or an opportunity for this student. So, absolutely, these are wonderful opportunities that we are providing currently in our after school program and also our young adult program through career pathways as well. So it's been wonderful.
That's great. One of the things that you all commented on is there's not one path or two paths as there were maybe 10 years ago. There are multiple paths. And but I still wonder, is it a challenge for both the work with young people, but also the community itself? And I'll start with you, Donnie. Is there still a challenge that, well, for many, yeah, there are all these different ways, vocational support, the military, internships that might lead to employment, but is there still the challenge that for young people and maybe many others, that the gold standard is still going to four-year college? And if that is the case, is that a challenge in working with young people to really kind of break through that perception so that it's not felt like you're kind of making a second-class decision to go a different way?
Right. So far, for the clients that I've been working with, they don't seem locked into the idea of the four-year college as it used to be. Um, so, however, the collaborations that everyone has been talking about so far are turning out to be the key to our work. Really, on the ground level for my clients, it's accessing the supports, it's researching, accessing, and being able to implement the supports that are out there. So again, from a functioning level, we know that there are supports available to us. The question is, which students are going to rise above? Which students are going to be able to do the research, access the supports, write the letters, connect with the providers, future employers? That's what we're seeing is our challenges on the ground level. But yeah, most of my clients right now are interested in trades, are interested in workforce. They're not locked into the four-year, although some are. We still have transfer students trying to get into CT state, trying to transfer to four-year college. It's I'd say our goal of offering more future-ready options is happening now from a youth perspective. It's just a matter of accessing and implementing.
Gotcha. And Carol, how about you as it relates to, you know, seniors, juniors who are potentially moving on and making choices that in the past, as we've all acknowledged, if you weren't going to four-year college, that's okay. But there was sort of almost a hidden message that you're really not, you're really not doing what, you could have been doing or whatever.
That stigma has really fallen away, and I think it's fallen away for many reasons. I think the reasons are, everything is future ready for all based on their voice. And so, students are really directing their own futures and what they want that to look like. So that really has fallen away. And I think another reason why it's fallen away is 4 years ago with the development of actually my role in the district overseeing workforce development for K to 12 and also our families as well, 18 plus. It's really shown and made the connection for this ecosystem that's been created to say, here are all of the options. And so our kids and families are really pursuing the different options that are put before them. We're seeing kids going into workforce. We're seeing kids go into apprenticeships and trades like we haven't in the past. And we're very fortunate because we're able to do that work with our students and families in the absence of having a technical trade high school, which is my dream. And I always put that out in the universe, right? One day, one day, one day. However, it's our way to really bridge that gap. And so I've been running it through our family center, a day in the life electrician series, a day in the life plumber and HVAC series. And so getting students and our families who are switching careers, who are needing employment, getting them into these apprenticeships and getting them to speak with the right people and learn how to apply for these apprenticeships is really bridging that gap. And there's a real excitement in the air. I mean, I will tell you it's data driven. So what I will share with you certainly is we talked about the data of the junior and senior class. And so looking to target the top trades that are of most interest to our students is whom I'm able to bring in. And so, of course, wanting to bring in everyone, but really targeting what they're telling us they want so we can get those connections made. And I think with this ecosystem that's been developed by Norwalk Public Schools 4 years ago, we're really seeing that data shift and that traction, and we're really seeing opportunities for all.
That's great. A couple of you all mentioned the importance of coordination, partnerships around this critically important topic. And Liz, I'm curious from the County Foundation's perspective, is the coordination and partnerships happening to the degree that it really needs to be, or is there still work to be done? Because there's so many different organizations, nonprofits, the school system, the community college, all involved in this. From your perspective, is there more needed in terms of the coordination of all of our efforts?
Well, first, I don't want to say there's been great efforts, there's been great partnerships, and there's been a lot of movement in figuring out how to partner effectively together in all of these fields we've been talking about. And I will say there's always work to be done. And I think it's important to highlight that I think historically people have not been encouraged to partner. And kind of getting over that hump is going to take a lot of time. And so there's been tons of progress made. But I think, and by not encouraged to partner, there's many reasons for that, right? I mean, look, competition for funding. So the idea is we need to separate ourselves from these people so that we're, better positioned to gain funding from a funder. And I think, where I think we sit uniquely from a community foundation perspective, is that, we don't just think of ourselves just as a funder. Although many of you sitting on this call might say the primary way we interact with FCCF is to get grant funds. And that's absolutely part of what we do. But I would argue that we play many different roles. So number one, we can play a role of convener, of catalyst, of incubator, of advocate, of research and education partner, and not only can we play these other roles with you all, but we feel that if we're going to invest in an organization, we should pair any funding we have with some type of role outside of just giving you a grant, right? And I think that the only way for strategic partnerships and partnerships to take hold in that type of dynamic is if a funder is really encouraging it, because otherwise we dip into old patterns of folks thinking, again, I shouldn't collaborate with this group over here. I shouldn't partner with these because we're seeking funding from the same place and we need to distinguish ourselves. And then I think the last thing I'll say about strategic partnership is it's really hard. And when you're working, and one of our core areas at the foundation is systemic change. And in order to achieve systemic change, that's a long-term calling, right? It's not something that can be achieved within a year or two. And so I think when you make the decision, we're going to partner with these folks, that's a commitment. And it's something that everyone should be committing to, but it's understanding that you have to really have your skin in this and really be willing to kind of go through all the iterations of what a partnership might mean, which is it's going to be really hard at certain times. You might disagree. You might have problems in coming up with the way you're going to launch an initiative because you have three completely distinct sectors sitting at the table and different ideas of how that should look. And you have to come to some common ground for the better good. And so yes, I think there's definitely work to be done, but there's definitely a lot of support and engagement in the county to kind of make that happen. I think that, we can continue to be a partner in that area to local organizations.
Just a follow-up on that. Thank you, Liz. Well said. This particular part of the state has so many unique aspects. I'm just curious, Fairfield County in relation, as it relates to this topic, how do we measure against maybe other parts of the state? Do you have a sense that there's more development here and maybe even more partnerships down in this part of the state? Or I'm just curious.
I definitely do not think there's tons more partnerships, but there's a lot more resources to be leveraged in Fairfield County than other parts. And I think a lot of the challenges that we have as a county on the surface are solvable with the resources we have at our disposal here in the county. But that's really easier said than done, because even though we might have tons of resources, bringing all those resources together is the challenge. I think in other parts of the state, there's just different infrastructure for these types of relationships and partnerships. And I think the county has seen some real growth in this area recently. And so there's real promise. And I think it's a really good moment to be thinking about how to do this work in the county specifically and to partner in the county because there's real opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. And Daisy, I'm thinking about another initiative that we're involved in, which is career pathways. You made reference to that, and that involves a couple of other partners. Do you want to just say a couple words about that?
Yeah, so for career pathways, for youth, we're connecting young adults to training programs, paid internship, and employment. And we do this also by while providing wraparound support from enrollment through placement into for a year of retention. So I think when we talk about continuation of care, this is such a great example. We don't just connect with the young adults, right? We do work beyond that. We stay connected with them. We make sure that they can get some employability skills training through our program here at FCA. We connect them and this pipeline with employers. We work together to ensure that they're ready for their workforce, and that if life happens, because that life does happen, right? Whatever that looks like, whether that's transportation or housing security, we can then, our agency here at FCA can then be connected with these young adults and support them through the wraparound support. And it's a very exciting initiative as well here at FCA that I think is going extremely well. And I am working very closely with the panelists here in today's virtual conversation. And it's all about that, right? It's all about collaboration and communication, staying active and engaged.
In this case, Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, Career Pathways really looks to partner with both the hospital here in Norwalk, but also the community, state community colleges, correct?
Yeah, at City State, correct. We are working closely with City State to ensure that we can have the young adults, anybody interested in the healthcare career, know about the different certification program that City State offers. So we make those connections to ensure that they know about the different programs that they offer. And from there, as they graduate with their certification, then we can connect them with Newark Hospital as the employers, right? Providing training, workforce training, and then eventually employment. And we stay with them up to a year to ensure that retention is happening for them.
I just wanted to add in real briefly, if I could. One of the wonderful things is that we've had an opportunity to partner in this programming. And so, a little aside, my email signature from a known baseball movie says, "If you build it, they will come."
Yes.
And so this is a prime example of what my signature says, right? That these programs are being built by our partners. And then our partners are coming to us and saying, let's offer this to the kiddos and the communities. And of course, there's age requirements, as there should be, because we're pipelining students into pathway, but we look at the age requirements, find out exactly how we can offer this to our MPS community, our community at large, and how we can pipeline into this programming. And so having our students and young adults and our family members in these programs is absolutely exciting, one person at a time. And I know that this is going to continue to grow in partnership. And it's just been a great, positive, bright, shining light in our partnerships.
Yeah, and if I could just add just like the foundation's perspective on some of these, just real quickly, and sorry to jump in, Rob, but just,
Please.
we're investing in this type of work because it's not just about these individual programs on the ground level working well, but we're investing in the systemic process of a new way of working in the workforce development ecosystem. So, Daisy was really kind of underselling the pivotal role that FCA is playing in this, kind of three-pronged, but, they're touching the young adults at every phase of this. But also, these aren't just, and not that these aren't good things when there's a handoff, but these aren't just handoffs. So it's not just sort of like understanding a little bit about what the hospital systems need and understanding a little bit about what CT State offers. But these partners are sitting at the table together, co-designing aspects of it. And I think that that's incredibly difficult work. And I think it's important to highlight, like, sometimes it's been wonderful and sometimes it's been really hard. And I think that's part of when you come up with a much better product and a new way of thinking and a new way of working, when that's how you strategically partner and when you sign on to partner with folks. And so I think from the foundation's perspective, that's where we really kind of see our role is to gather some experts around the table, invest in their work, provide capacity building and support and convening. But really, we're acting as a catalyst for folks to be able to do this type of work more intentionally. And I think that, again, that's the role that we're seeking to play. And I think that, there's a lot of opportunity here in the county to do that type of work.
Yeah. And Liz, it occurs to me that as you have spoken, Fairfield County Community Foundation has really put its money, so to speak, where its mouth is, because, this initiative, this partnership, which we call Career Pathways, with Norwalk Hospital, with the two state community colleges and FCA, is being funded by Fairfield County. So it is a great example of what you've been saying, that if we as providers can come together, the foundation will absolutely support that kind of partnership. So
Right.
thank you. I
And I
really
think it's
appreciate
also
that.
always our goal to catalyze you to continue on the work beyond what we might initially support you in doing, whether that's funding, whether that's convening, whatever. But, we're not here to kind of hover over processes in perpetuity. We're here to help you get to where you want to be in terms of a new way of working. And so our intent is always just to be that initial catalyst and then help you launch to the next phase. So, yeah.
Many thanks. So, we've this has been a wonderful conversation so far. And one of the things that occurs to me is that we've talked about how things have dramatically changed in terms of what this work is and where it might lead to. And I know it's been mentioned by a few people, the importance, and obviously all of our work, of collecting data and collecting outcomes. So I know it's a broad question. I'm going to start with you, Carol. As it relates to your role, and we'll get everybody's perspective, what's the critical outcomes that we're looking for in this area? Because again, as you and I both said, 10, 15 years ago, they might look very different than they look now.
So I think the critical role of the data and those outcomes is everyone having a post-secondary plan. And so as stated before, it's there's no tie to what that plan is for us school system. There is a tie in terms of what that plan is that the scholar has identified. What do they want to do? What dream do they have that they want to realize? That's where the tie comes in for us. How do we support the dreams and the plans that they would like to pursue? And so for us, from a critical data perspective, the outcome is everyone everyone with a plan. Because when we start to survey our juniors, we do have a category that's called no plan. And you know what? It just means they haven't decided yet. And, I think back to being that 16, 17-year-old and my school counselor asking me, what do you want to do? And I was like, what do you mean? I don't, I didn't have an answer. And so at the end of the day, taking that junior response of not having that plan as of yet formalized exactly, that outcome being that everyone does by senior year have a formalized plan because it's in action and we're following it and we're supporting it. So that's a real critical piece for us.
Yeah. Daisy, what about you? Daisy and then Donnie. Daisy.
Absolutely. I agree with Carol, right? I mean, job placement is important, but it's just one piece, right? We should also be looking at retention, stability, wage growth, continued education or training, and just an overall well-being. So we also pay attention to smaller milestones, right? What we think of as micro goals like consistency, skill development, and increased confidence. So I think that progress is not always linear. So measuring meaningful change means looking at growth over time, not just one outcome.
And Donnie, how about you and your work?
Yes, yes. To add on further, yes, we have participants who are looking at, getting a job, moving out on their own, having financial stability. But we also have clients that are looking to break a long-term cycle in their family or establish better boundaries with enmeshed family members or putting court charges behind them. So with each larger goal of getting a job or getting into school or getting an apartment, there's all these earlier, steps of life that get in the way. And so, for us on the ground level, it's like, how do you deal with mistakes and setbacks? How do you build your own personal accountability or resilience? And if we're able to check off those boxes with each participant, then in a way, those are also outcomes that we're looking towards, building blocks towards our larger goals, similar to what everyone has mentioned. So that's an example of some of the outcomes that RISE is looking at as well.
Terrific. And Liz, how about from your perspective, in terms of outcomes and what the foundation might be looking for in terms of outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, it's really what a lot of my stated. But, it's not just, that initial, process oriented goal. But it's really, where there's capacity, are they getting closer to that long-term sustainability goal for themselves and their families, whatever it might look like for your particular initiative, for the particular young people. And so, a lot of people highlight, oh, getting a job is an outcome. And I would argue that might be more of a process goal, right? Because just getting a job, like, again, might not be your launch pad. And it might not be addressing all of those other systems indicators that are going to make you a little bit more sustainable long term. And so, how is a particular organization, from my lens, education and workforce development, kind of addressing multiple of those levers? Yeah.
Terrific. So we just have a few minutes, and I'm going to ask a question and maybe hit each of you briefly before we need to wrap up. And thank you, by the way. You've answered these questions so well, and I hope that our audience has really benefited. What if you could think of one thing or two that you would like to share with the audience in terms of what you would hope they would take away and maybe even be willing to support going forward in whatever roles they play? What would you like them to have as a key takeaway? Carol, I'll start with you.
I think a key takeaway is going to be something that we all understand kind of through the test of time. I want the key takeaway to be our young kiddos, our teens, our young adults are capable of everything and anything that they set their mind to. And the takeaway that I would love everyone to kind of think about and process as we come to a close today is that if you build it, they will come. And so, what I want you to know from that is we have had students put in amazing situations and circumstances in terms of internships and exposures and opportunities, for example, and they have not only risen to the challenges put in front of them, but they've exceeded them. And so, I think for our audience and participants here with us today, you know, get into the game with us and let's create experiences and let's create opportunities for them because they're really going to wow you with what they can do. And so I think that would be my most important takeaway. So thank you for taking a chance on them, and you're actually helping to impact and change lives.
Wonderful. And Donnie, how about you? A key takeaway.
Thank you. Yeah, for anybody with a young adult in their life, I would suggest asking them if they need help achieving a task, any task that they might have looming over them. It could be getting a license or an ID, filling out a form or an application, making and attending an appointment, anything that you could do to assist in the executing of that task could have a very fruitful outcome. And I think a lot of my clients are indicating that just the act of doing it alongside of them, holding their hand as they write the essay, holding their hand as they fill out the application, has turned out to be invaluable. So anyone with a young adult in their life might find this helpful in connecting with their young adult.
Wonderful. And Daisy, how about you? A key takeaway.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to all the audience from today. And I would say get connected and take one step towards involvement, right? That could be offering an internship, partnering with a program, mentoring, or even just helping spread awareness so more young people know that these opportunity exists. If you're interested in getting involved, we welcome those conversations. Whether you are an employer, an educator, community member, or there's a role for everyone supporting young adults. And what makes the biggest difference is not just one action step, but staying engaged.
Wonderful. And Liz, as we come to a close very quickly, but any thoughts that you would like someone to take as a key takeaway from today?
I'll just build on what my colleague said, which is just really thinking about what your role can be in this ecosystem supporting young adults and how can we help build those bridges.
That's terrific. Well, I want to thank you all for your very, very thoughtful comments and on this critically important topic as it has evolved, and obviously a number of themes that I'm hearing, partnerships, and do the hard work in partnering, as you said, Liz, because that's really where a lot of benefit can happen. Recognizing that this whole workforce development area for young people has dramatically shifted from 10 or 15 years ago. And we're looking at things in a very different way. And at the end of the day, it's really creating sustainable lives for our young people. And at the end of the day, I assume we would all agree that's the most important outcome, that we're heading and working with young adults so that they get to a place where they have self-sustaining lives that are meaningful as they move forward in their life. So thank you all. Thank you to all the people who tuned in, as we have done in the past. If we have your emails, we will provide some resources as a result of today, which we've done in the past for other topics. And keep an eye out. We will continue these virtual conversations. As I said, today, I think is our 13th or 14th. So we will continue these usually on a quarterly basis. And many, many thanks, Carol, Liz, Donnie, and Daisy. Really appreciate your thoughts and your time today, this important topic. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.